SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure Monosity.
What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast, and my name is Neil with SFJ4x4.com, Simpson Family Jeeps. See, I had a bigger vamp there, Jeffrey, because on the American Hustle, and if you're listening to us right now, folks, and you don't know what the American Hustle is, you need to go find it right now on your favorite streaming platform. It's a super solid.
Not right now.
No,
After-
not right now.
yeah,
After you listen to
after
this.
listen to this.
After you listen to this.
Go ahead, go look for it right now, subscribe to it, and then come back.
Oh, that's
All
fine.
right.
too.
All right. I dig that. I dig that.
But you
So-
can listen to it after a lunch.
Yeah.
This is a meeting,
Yes.
and then at lunchtime you can do
Yeah,
the
this is
American
this
Hustle.
is the fake meeting you've scheduled
Yes.
for us to be part of, and or you're shirking facing the shelves at the store right now, hiding in the break room listening
or
to us.
just stalking, and period. and
Yeah, you could just be
listening
stocking
to it.
shelves right now listening to us.
Yes.
We appreciate that. But I was getting ready to vamp out at the American Hustle this morning, and I was just like, and I'm Neil. And then there was nothing.
I was so caught off guard, I was not ready.
That's right.
I was like, wow, I wasn't ready to improvise,
know.
adapt, and
Yeah.
overcome in this situation.
Yep.
Poor Jeff.
No doubt. No doubt.
It was so random.
But who are you?
Yeah.
Who are, well,
Yeah.
you ready? I mean, you're
Oh,
gonna
well,
do your thing?
well, in that case, I'm
Twice in a row now.
Yeah.
I
What,
know.
Jeff? Are you sleeping today? What's
it's
going on,
terrible.
man?
so I'm the producer.
Sleeping.
I'm the producer, Jeff Shermani.
You sure?
No, I'm not sure. I think I'm the Italian stallion.
You
That's what
are.
people say.
That's right.
There it is.
And then who's that over there?
Are you
Wearing
sure?
the same shirt as me.
Again.
Again, that's twice in like
They
2 weeks.
planned it, folks. They're
No.
twinning. They're
No.
twinning. The only way, the only way to tell them apart is Jeffrey wears the driver's hat.
No, and
Well,
and-
the
and, you know, he
tattoo.
got the tattoo.
yeah,
now.
he's got the sleeve. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, folks, if
Not
you
that
don't know,
full-
there's
full
a
committed.
vlog, one of our vlog videos out there for Tech Tuesday, and we actually have got the two of them, lined
Yeah.
up.
Can you pick who's who?
Can you pick who's who? They both
Yeah.
have black hats on from the back and the gray shirts
And
and
carpenter jeans.
carpenter jeans because those are cool. And
They're coming back.
they're not.
yes.
they're not
Yep.
though.
That's the style.
But they're not.
Yep.
So many pockets.
So many pockets.
right there with your leopard print.
Yeah.
That's also not coming back, and I'm okay with that. That's, I had a moment.
You
I
can
lived
keep it
it.
alive.
Discord got very interesting. We'll
Yeah.
put it that way.
Yes.
I've got some ballin' stickers. I meant to bring them on from Chip
Yeah.
and Aaron. Really appreciate your guys' gift to us.
Maybe you should yell over to Davey and have him grab him.
I think he's got his headphones. I don't think he can hear us. He's
Yeah.
he's doing his stuff. Oh, he's
Oh,
looking
he's-
at it. There we go.
yeah.
Hey, Savage. Hey, Savage, can you get those Jeep On stickers? We're going to talk about those. I don't know where they're at. They're on the front counter, I think.
Yeah, they're on the front counter.
So I guess I should introduce myself.
So I was talking about myself. That's what was really important here. And you were talking about leopard print. I was talking about you two. I wasn't even talking about me.
Easily.
It wasn't even- Discord. That's
Discord.
Patreons. You should be a Patreon for I Speak Jeep
You
and
should.
support the program.
Yeah.
We really appreciate that. All
After
right.
you listen to the American Hustle at lunch, you should subscribe to that.
Yes.
After that.
Incoming.
Oh, he
Thank
tried
you.
so hard to make sure he didn't come on camera this
You
time.
did good,
Yes.
Savage. He didn't butt bomb us again as he has in the past. And you know what? If you're listening to us in your ear holes, all three of you, and we appreciate that, you too could join us on Facebook Live every Monday at 10:19 a.m.
Yeah, the cool ones.
Speaking of joining us
No
live,
doubt.
Scott's wife Amy, good
Morning,
morning.
Amy.
Hi,
And
honey.
Darla, good morning.
Hey, darling.
Now,
Dar-
speaking of Scott, who are you, Scott?
I am mad scientist / Doc Brown / whatever.
slash whatever slash janitorial services.
Yes.
There's so many hats that we all wear in this
Wire
building.
sorter.
Wire sorter. Yep. Today I was very dirty spots on block cleaner so I can put a coil on a motor.
Very dirty spots on engine block. For,
Yes,
for
I was
listeners.
trying to make it as PC
Not
as
like you were
possible.
on the block, like
No.
Jenny on the block. I mean,
No.
I feel like that needed to be
No,
clarified.
It's a 78 or 79 Jeep, and this spot has never been used, so there was some definite cruddage in there.
Interesting. As an important aside for the conversation about the many hats that we wear, I was recently exposed on a business management, and this is something we could talk about on the American Hustle, which is, again, great podcast. You should go check it out. About how much financially each employee should be contributing to your business. And it comes back to the Pareto principle, but ultimately you need to have a certain amount of money per person in a viable business, in a growth-oriented business. And so, interestingly enough, it is about wearing many, many hats, because
yeah.
the number is it's an uncomfortable amount of money per individual when you break down the business. And so it's fascinating to kind of look behind the curtain a little bit of there was actually a statistical analysis done of some of your Fortune 500s and your small businesses, whether they were, independently owned or Fortune 500. And there's actually a class of businesses, or they could actually look at the statistics and say, on average, this is how much successful businesses make per person. So if they're grossing, $1 million, then you actually should only have 5 employees.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting? And it's just, four actually, it's 4 employees. You should only have 4 employees. Super fascinating. That's a statistical analysis. Anyways, neither here nor there, but that's all about the employees wearing multiple hats.
Oh yeah.
That's where that came from.
Yep.
That's what the American Hustle is in part about, folks. You might want to check it out.
Yep.
As far as things that are happening in the world, we're all pretty much in the thick of things. We don't have any phenomenal project updates. You're still just banging on metal every night of the week.
Well, so my update over the weekend was I filled in some gaps that I originally was going to leave, and I was kind of like, that's silly. Why not just go in there and finish that out? So
Yes.
I did that. There'll be an update for that if you're on my Instagram, coming up. I didn't feel like just 2 pictures were good enough for an update. So sometimes I will do that. I'll save up a couple pictures and I'll do a big, massive update. But I am continually working. The other thing I learned, the things I've learned this weekend,
Sure.
was not all seam sealers are created equal, and 3M will touch you on how you apply it.
Oh, interesting.
That's where I'll leave that.
Did it
Oh.
tack up quickly? Or?
No, I don't have the tool to put it on the vehicle.
Oh,
So I was
This
like,
is-
I will buy the better seam sealer, and I'll get 3M because that's a name I can trust.
sure.
And then they want $50 for the applicator
Oh,
to put it on.
wow.
That's the cheap one.
Wow.
There's a $140 one too. I'm gonna see if I can make a regular gun work. Because mad scientist.
Sure.
I can't find those. And then I was bit by a tube on my
A
foot.
caulking gun fell on your foot.
Well,
The
the
tube.
tube itself. And that really hurts people. If you don't know that,
what
protect yourself.
did you have shoes on?
I did. It went between the shoe and right at the opening of the shoe.
Oh,
The
course
tip
it
of the
did.
tip
Yeah.
of it.
Just the tip.
Just the tip.
So if you see
Scott
me,
took
Was it
just
was
the
it a
tip.
girthy bottle?
if
Oh
you see me
God.
limping
Okay.
around today,
No.
that's why.
Oh my god.
He has issues walking after that.
Okay.
Yeah,
do you know-
no more working happened after that. I was like, hey, I'm just gonna go sit down. I need to be able to work tomorrow.
Oh,
So, real
sitting
quick-
your lazy boy.
Nurture. Change the subject here. So Joe says, I was told there'd be no math, and Darla said
was
math is
told there'd be
definitely
no
not
math.
my thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
can't math.
Joe,
today.
Joe,
love
the
math.
math is all involved in your Jeep right now. We're going to talk about like E equals MC squared divided by
Yes.
pi.
Yeah, we
Oh,
have a
all the-
lifeline in the, it's a couple
couple.
high ups.
Yeah, right. We're really getting to the nitty gritty, in depth diagnostics these days.
Yeah,
And good morning, Brad.
We need Einstein to weigh
Hey,
in.
Brad. Yeah, no, undoubtedly, right? And some of these jobs, and I actually think, right now, without getting overly overly. I don't want to raise any flags. I don't want to cause any caution to
We're just
anybody.
having fun.
But we are genuinely booked. We're probably pushing October at this point.
Yeah.
We have enough Jeeps on site that will. We're still looking for those little onesie twosies necessarily, but anything that's diagnostic related.
Still call us. Still give us the opportunity.
Yes. But understand, if your Jeep is here, we're diligently trying to work and prioritize.
It's very Jeepy here.
It's very Jeepy here right now.
Joe says, for the love of God, do not divide by 0. Joe, I think that's what your Jeep is doing. I think that's really what it is.
It is doing to us. So, myself, my wife and I are taking that next big step in our small house storage container build. And we are trying to let go of our property in Pennsylvania. And that has been...
Lots of Disney songs.
Oh, let it go. Let it go.
Now we're going to get flagged.
Sorry,
No,
Jeff,
it wasn't.
that
It
out.
wasn't close enough to copyright. We're good.
So, beautiful piece of property. It's looking pretty gorgeous over there. There's a bunch of stuff that I still want to take with me. I want to take my peach trees. That's probably one of the things I'm kind of most
Peachy.
So you
upset
should just
about.
Take some from the tree and then plant and let those trees be.
Oh
Like,
my
just blow your
gosh.
mind.
You just blew my mind.
There you go.
I-
That's what I do.
never even
That's
thought.
what I bring to this
They
relationship.
finally so here's oh my God, I love you so much. That was amazing. Because it finally produced. My son is 10.
Yep.
And we bought peach trees for my wife on Mother's Day. That was her Mother's Day present. And so the tree finally produced beautiful peaches this
There you
year
go.
as we had moved away.
So
I
it's
wonder if there's
easy.
any peaches I can harvest
Definitely.
the seeds out of and see if I can start some peach trees.
100%.
If anybody is listening who knows about harvesting and starting peach trees, I'm here for your feedback.
Yeah.
You can
I heard you have to
reach out
talk to
us.
the tree. That really helps.
Well, we talked to the trees, we talked to the Jeeps talk to us, we
There's-
talked to the bees.
So there's a new study going around about plants. Apparently, they can sense when they're being looked at. So putting a mirror by them helps houseplants. Yeah, I have no
And
idea.
There's that.
I have no idea.
And there's that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
We're okay.
Yep.
I can.
Well,
I
that's
can-
because you talk sweet nothings to your plants.
all the time.
I know you do.
That's my wife too. Yeah, we play them
Probably like
music
plants more
and-
than people sometimes.
My wife, no doubt, no doubt. Anyway, so we're trying to let that property go, and we're in the throes of viewings and remediating. 14 years worth of me paying more attention to Jeeps than the
Yeah.
house. So hopefully that will be on its way. It's been fun to kind of shift our focus as that kind of settles down ish, or at least allows us to daydream again on the house build, because with the belief that this house will sell soon or soon enough, it kind of helps reignite a little bit of a fire on the house build.
Yep.
Which again, if you're just tuning in, my wife and I are hand building our own home.
Yes.
And
the hardest way possible.
the hardest way possible
Uphill both ways, pushing 16 tons.
is the Simpson way.
Yes.
'Tis the Simpson way. So Jeffrey and you, you've had a lot of life. You're just trying to maintain and keep everybody. How's your son doing? Everybody, often asks about Xander in the process.
So Xander's doing really good. August 25th will be his surgery to have the sutures removed from the eyeball itself. The dissolvables that were in his eyelids have pretty much all gone away at this point.
Fascinating.
At the time of doing the surgery to remove those sutures, are going to also do a ultrasound scan of his eyeball because they can't actually see into it right now. So they're going to do a scan to see how it's healing internally, and more decisions are going to be made after that. Also going to be talking to a specialist, a ocular plastic surgeon, whatever their title's actually called, I can't
Sure.
remember, but to identify what may or may not need to be done to make sure that his face continues to grow appropriately with the eye being damaged the way it is.
Interesting.
So,
A lot more to it than one would think.
Yeah.
oh yeah, long road ahead there. So just spending time with the kids. We did a little bit of extra preparation for fireworks for Labor Day weekend since we didn't get to do the 4th of July one. So we're continuing to make that show bigger and safer at the same time.
Yes.
Just because of the life and the
Yep.
way it's been happening.
So
Put stuff in perspective.
Yep, and just again, if this is your first time joining us, or if you are weighing in and you're just not sure, Jeffrey's son has nothing to do with fireworks or anything like that. It was just a kind of a tragic between siblings play in the backyard, and these things happen in life. This is the definition of life happens, and how we respond to it is what then defines us.
Correct.
Right. So if you are unaware and you missed the big flash. The Jeep community was just fantastic outpouring of support.
Unbelievable.
And in these situations, it's always remarkable what happens kind of immediately, but the struggle continues on a week later, a month later, 2 months, 2 years, right? And so it's always valuable to reach in and just check on people in the process.
Now, just for fun, because last night Xander said that he is going to identify as a pirate now, and he's working on coming up with a pirate name.
Perfect.
If anyone has any suggestions
For a pirate name for Xander.
for a pirate name for
We'll
Xander,
run it past him.
Absolutely.
We'll run it past him.
That's
oh,
awesome.
that is so cool. Good attitude.
Yes.
That's gonna get him all the distance in life.
Absolutely.
So today, as we actually talk about Jeeps, right? This is a really, really valuable topic, and it's one that has been suggested to us in part by our lead performance, Greg, who refuses to come on the program with
Yes.
us. Which is fine. We
Likes
love
to
him.
be a shadow in the back.
He is the guy who identifies with the Stig
Yes.
from Top Gear,
Yes.
right? And I genuinely believe that if we gave him the ability to do YouTube videos and whatnot from behind his welding helmet,
Yeah, he might do it.
that he might actually do it.
Yeah.
And that might be the thing. Now he is going to be on camera. I think he was uncomfortable because last time he was on camera was SEMA, where he was getting danced on by another inebriated man, which I think is probably part of Greg's concern. Is the last
Yes.
time he was on camera,
He was compromised.
He was compromised. But at the end of today, instead of hashtag not sponsored, we are going to be talking about hashtag events happening, right?
Yes.
And kind of what our schedule looks like in the next dose weeks for our travels and where we're going to be and what we're going to be doing. So stay tuned for that, because ideally Greg will be on camera then. Today's topic is a great title, and it's "With great off-road parts comes great responsibility."
Yep.
Right, and we could have like a little superhero intro, blah,
Why
I
didn't
missed
Jeff
an
do that?
opportunity.
Jeff missed opportunity,
wow.
man. You could
Jeffrey.
have been doing like a little Superman spoof sound bite. It's a
I-
bird. It's a plane.
It's Jeep Man.
It's Jeep Man with great off-road parts.
Okay, I no longer feel like I missed an opportunity. Scott just kind of ruined it there for me.
What? I thought Scott. No,
Jeep
Scott.
I thought it was a Jeep
No.
Man.
He-
Now I had
he-
to do it
He
there.
passed me the ball and
Yes.
I slammed it down.
as
I
we
think it's.
normally do.
I think it was fantastic.
I feel like you need to
Jeep
do that with a
Man,
Jamaican accent now.
No. No.
man.
We've
I'm
been-
doing Jeep Man stuff over here.
Yeah, you need to do it with a Jamaican accent. I think that'd be
No,
perfect.
you're just trying to get me to do accents.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not. I'm not
No,
here for it.
No.
Somebody did an accent around us the other day,
and it was
And
spot
you
on.
you
It was-
resisted.
resisted. I resisted. Our friend in Minnesota doesn't like my accent, so I feel more conscientious that I should not do those accents because he doesn't appreciate as much as I do. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and make good choices. Make good choices. Try.
Try.
So here's the thing, folks. If you have spent much time and you think this is a Jeep inspired podcast, it is, right? But
Yeah.
it's actually about the Jeep life,
And
right?
there's so much life.
It's so much life, and that's really the value of I Speak Jeep. It's not just the technical information, and we will cover technical
we
information.
can get technical.
We can get technical.
If you need to go to sleep, we can do it for you.
We will absolutely talk way over your head and not entertain you.
And do it for 5 episodes. at
And we'd be
least.
super happy to do that because Scott and I are perfectly entertained
Yeah,
in the
it's
process.
fine.
But I think really valuably, we talk about life and we talk about how these things of the Jeep culture fit in to how we go about our experience as Jeep owners, as individuals who drive them, who wheel them, who go to events with
It's
them.
doing more with less.
Yes. So so the idea is today we're actually going to be talking about some technical things because too often we as consumers are we're caught in the gleam, the glint of these cool parts,
Or
or
we have in our head like, oh, it'll be great when I can do blah, and I just need to get this so I can do blah. But then you don't think about what does that then mean for the next
what does that
6 months,
entail?
year,
Yes.
2 years. How
the
long is this going
maintenance
to last?
that associated with things. And so we're going to be talking about actual physical parts of the Jeeps today. Why we might want them. Why do we think that they're desirable? And then what can we expect once we have them?
Yep.
Right? This is the concept of with great off-road parts comes great off-road responsibility, right? And you could interchange Jeep parts or off-road parts or
And I think
hardcore
everybody
rugged off-road
has a
build
little
stuff.
bit of this concept. I mean, everyone knows that if you're going to do top fuel on drag strip, then you're going to rebuild your motor every time you go down the track.
So I don't think everybody
Well,
knows that.
You do that if you don't know that. They literally tear down the motors in between heats and build them back up. They are going to put all new stuff in it every so many runs.
And I think so
That's on the highest level of automotive usage, as I was trying to put
See,
it
I
into.
think this idea goes not just in the automotive field, but in life in general, because I think one of the biggest things we can reasonably all identify with are the Olympics. Right?
Yes.
And so the idea that the Olympics come into our living rooms, into our streaming devices,
They make it look so easy.
they make it look so easy.
They
Let me
don't-
guess, Scott, you can do it better.
Oh, no.
We can do it, right?
I know
So-
my limitations on that.
I mean, and we all can conceptualize at some point in time in our life, we have watched some Olympic activity. I don't care if it's even curling, and you're like, but I could do that,
Not me.
right? And there is plenty of people who are watching that going, well, I think that if I worked a little harder, if I got this, blah blah blah, if I was
And then
closer
you-
to,
You watch behind the scenes. They're like, this one's been working on this for 3 years, preparing for the Olympics.
Just
for
this
a
one,
week.
this one stunt. Of
this
Yes.
one stunt, this one stroke,
It's
this
gonna
one
do it
flip.
for 2 days in the Olympics, and it took 2-3 years of
Correct.
process.
Correct. And I think that in itself is the concept of great off-road parts, great off-road
I
responsibility.
think Ryan might be a fan of curling.
Yeah.
He says, "I love me some curling."
Oh, without question, right? Ryan, you and I could be on a curling team.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out, man.
Have you ever realized that curling is literally just the dad of Olympic sports?
It's fantastic.
It's just a bunch of dad bods standing around pushing.
Sort of bowling.
Yeah.
Sort of bowling. Right now, we're just tremendously offending curling,
I'm sorry.
professional curlers.
So sorry.
I really think that we could make a professional curling
I'm
team
about
out
the
of our
most
shop.
Oh,
anti-sports
no.
guy going, so you got to take my stuff with a grain
Man,
of
in
salt.
our free time, we have so many good ideas. We're actually going to have
Ri-
to act upon
Ryan
some of
says,
these.
"Husky guy Olympics, I'm in."
Amen. All right, so here's the thing: we as consumers in the Jeep world are attracted to these parts constantly.
Yes.
Right? And then we want to get them. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
Yep.
And then we have to do something with them, right?
Yes.
And sometimes that's even just maintaining them. So if we do a very overarching kind of perspective, I think that one of the things that if we're just doing very broad and we're not even talking like the nitty gritty just yet, one of the things is lift kits.
Yes.
We are attracted to lift kits.
Well, I think you need to start first. I'm attracted to big tires. Therefore, I need a lift kit.
Correct.
And I'm looking for the view of the Jeep. It's something I can see.
The
it's aesthetic.
aesthetics.
And then after that, it's like, okay, how am
I
I
don't
actually-
know what word he said.
He was going for he took instant gratification. He started with instant and he was going for
This is-
aesthetic
This is what we're gonna do now.
and he went for aesthetic.
Whatever.
Aesthetic.
Aesthetic.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I really couldn't figure out what he was trying
Hashtag
to say on that one. I'm glad you,
aesthetic.
if you're
I'm glad
only
you
in my
defined it.
head, it's so much clearer in
I
my
don't
head.
want to be.
I
I don't want to be.
Easier to build vehicles in my head.
it is.
I'm sure it
I mean,
is.
okay.
That's-
So you want that instant gratification. You
Yes.
were setting us up for instant gratification of that big tire
Yes.
look, right?
Yes.
Because we
It
see the
always
Jeep
starts
come
with
down.
a look. Doesn't matter how you're gonna use it.
100%. It comes down to a look, right? Is that
Back to Olympics for just a second.
Yeah,
Joe,
no.
why?
Joe says, "What's the one where you dance around in a leotard while waving around a ribbon tied to a stick? I can do that."
Ribbon dancing. It's literally ribbon dancing. And
Neil's
Joe,
well versed in this.
A, I am well versed in ribbon dancing.
I don't know,
B,
those people look like they're sweating a lot when they do that. I don't think I'm up for that shape.
I need Joe Brilla to I need Linda and Joe to go out
Leopard print.
and do a ribbon dance and submit it for review. And I would like to include it on one of our YouTube videos.
kinda
When we fix the Jeep, when we fix Joe's Jeep and it's no longer has this power draw issue sufficiently, I think he needs to come and do a ribbon dance with them around.
I think you need to do it with him around the Jeep.
Jeep dance, the power of the dance.
The power of the dance.
Maybe we need to do that before we get the Jeep fixed. Maybe
That
that'll
might
fix
fix
it.
I'm not. No, I'm so angry at that Jeep. Okay.
He said
so-
challenge accepted. I'm a little worried. And Darla said dressed in leopard print. So
Is there any other choice?
no, there
I'm
isn't.
completely. Where were we at now?
Remember we were talking about Jeep
We're
parts?
talking about aesthetics of a Jeep.
Yes.
hey, he said it right.
We start with this vision, right?
Yes.
It's our vision of what we think our Jeep is going to do for us or with us.
Yep.
And it's going to make us look cooler.
Yep.
We're going to look a certain way as we go to the grocery store, to the trail, to whatever, right?
And I always feel bad, but this is literally part of the SFJ difference because people come in and are like, I want my Jeep to look cool. And we go, okay, we have some questions. And they're like, I just want my Jeep to
I
look
just
cool.
want it to look cool.
And
Okay,
I'm-
but I
and
still have questions.
I have so many questions. I'm like, how are you going to use it? And they're like, I don't know.
In a cool way.
I think it's a vehicle. I'm going to drive it. Well, how are you going to drive it? I don't know. Are you going to leap giant buildings with it? Well, maybe, and maybe not. And then the best part is you get these. This is where the Jeep will speak to us thing. I think I'm going to do this, and then reality is this, and then what actually happens is over here. And there's usually 3 different things.
Totes.
I think my favorite response is I'd like to try it, but I don't know if I'm
Yes.
going to like it.
I want to dabble the tire in the sand for a minute and see what it's like.
Correct. And
Which is why we really need Jeep rentals, because then you could go out and try before you buy. New
he
business
just
idea.
challenged me.
I did.
He just
Anyway.
challenged me.
if you go out west, they have that.
That's why
Well,
we need it on the
it's
East
what he's
Coast.
saying. He wants it here. You know?
Yes.
So I'm with you 100%, right? And so we have the Jeep, right?
Yep.
And now the person has achieved this they've unlocked this level in their
Yes.
life.
They bought the achievement.
They've bought into their achievement, right?
Yes.
So now I want it to look cool. I want that big tire and wheel.
Yes.
I want the bumper.
Yep.
Right? Because ultimately, when we talk about the aesthetics, we're at tire wheel packages.
Yep.
We're at bumpers,
Yes.
front and rear possibly.
And then I have to outfit it because my friends are going to make fun of me. So I have a winch bumper with no winch. I have to put a winch on it.
Totes.
Yep.
And lights
Yes.
potentially. And sound. And sound could either be stereo
Yes.
or exhaust.
Or both.
Or
Right?
both.
And that's what I'm saying. But those are our
Or motor upgrades.
I think that there is some people who get into motor upgrades, and
Yeah.
that is a great parts, great responsibility thing.
Very much
little more obscure. They're kind of just outside of the 5 big ones that your average Jeeper is going to first bolt on, those first mods, right? And that's ultimately understand that's part of what this conversation is. Wait, people all the time, I see them on the big social forums because I am in there lurking, just so you know.
Yep.
Um,
We don't post anymore, but we lurk.
Totally. People are always like, I bought my Jeep. What's the first thing I should do to it?
Yeah, and you get 110
110
different
responses. Ultimately, we identified the people's motivation, right?
Yep.
So first of all, when you come to SFJ, we say, well, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Not what should I bolt
What are you going
onto
to do
it?
with it? Is this your secondary or first level
Your
car?
primary vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Because that will make a difference whether or not you should put bias ply sticky super swampers on
Yes.
it. Right? Or maybe you need to put a radial all-terrain so
Mhm.
that you can drive it and commute to work still,
And,
right?
and sometimes there's some give and take. You might realize that an all-terrain is actually better suited for your use, but it's not going to have that aesthetic of that big, gnarly, luggy,
Knobby, luggy tire.
bias ply.
Yes.
And you just have to sometimes take a little bit of I have to adjust my view
Yes.
because this is going to better serve me.
Yes. And so understand, if we just talk about tires and wheels specifically, as soon as you go to a bigger tire, right? And now we've made that with great off-road parts comes a great off-road responsibility.
Yep.
I no longer use the air pressure that the Jeep says I should use,
Yes.
right? That's a big thing. We have now deviated from
Status quo.
from status quo as that engineer had said we were going to do.
Which,
When-
fun. A lot of the Jeep engineers know this and plan for it, and then they have a lot of other different reasons why they can or cannot offer that as a thing.
Right.
But now that you have those larger tires, now you have that different air pressure, now it's your responsibility for the life of your tires and the use of your Jeep to be cognizant of what your tire pressure should be, and is it always the right pressure?
Right, because you're now responsible for that. You're going to
Yes.
go into the Quickie Lube station,
And
they're going to
screw
say,
it up.
they're going to say, well, your tire pressure should be what's on the sidewall of the tire, which is wrong. Or
What's on the door?
What's on the door,
Which is wrong.
which is now wrong.
yes.
Right? And you have to be prepared to say, this is why I have consciously made this choice. I've either
Yep.
chosen to follow the guys at I Speak Jeep,
Yes.
and so they're telling me that this is the right thing, this is the science,
Yep.
or you familiarized yourself and said, oh, this is the science and why I
and
should be doing
nothing
this.
drives me more nuts than, and this is why I have to lurk, is you'll see a thing and it's usually sadly a woman, and she's going for the look, and she modifies her Jeep. She doesn't know any of the details, so they fill in the blanks for her. She gets it done, and now it doesn't drive the way she expected, handle the way she expected, and now she goes for a service. They further change it, make it worse or better, either way. And then I see, what does it take to make my vehicle stock again? I am so burned by the process that now I just want my Jeep back the way it was, because now I can actually use it.
Right.
And that breaks my heart.
Well, and I think it's really valuable for anybody who's listening, and because the world we're living in 2023, recognize that it does not always have to be a woman,
No.
but as an industry,
The last couple I've seen have been.
no doubt, and as an industry, we need to do better as an
Yes.
automotive mechanical business. As an industry, we have to do better because oftentimes there are people, and oftentimes they are women, who do not feel comfortable
Yes.
in our mechanical spaces. And so when you bring that up specifically, we're approaching this from the lens of looking in, going, these people are getting taken advantage of.
Yes.
Right. And so it doesn't have to be a woman, but there are
No.
populations of people who are being taken advantage of because they're unfamiliar with the questions that they should be asking, and therefore people are just superimposing their lack of knowledge onto them, saying, oh, well, you want this lift kit and you want this tire and you want this wheel.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with you folks, typically if a business is saying you want these three things, they have incentive to try and sell you those.
Yes.
Right? That's something that they've got overstock, something they did a buy-in on.
Yep.
That's why we ask and we go, what do you want to do with it? Because quite frankly, we don't have an investment in this. We're going to choose the right product for the
And
scenario
usually
or
how I
situation.
address that in that situation, because I understand you in that situation. You may not know what you want. I will say, this is what I've done.
Correct.
This is how I use my vehicle.
Yep.
This is what,
You've put on your wife's,
Put it
right?
on my
How
wife's
my wife
vehicle.
uses her vehicle.
and this are the pluses and the positives and the negatives of that situation. This is what you're going to gain. This is what you're going to lose. And I've literally let people drive my Jeep before and said, this is what it does. This is
Yep.
how it handles. This is what you will expect. And this is why the rent a Jeep is so valuable, but we'll get there someday. Then people come back and nine times out of 10, they go, that is what I want.
Yes.
That is the Swiss Army knife kind of mentality is what I want to do. Now, there is always going to be opportunity.
People on
to-
either extreme too.
Yes, to make it better. But that's the other thing is if you're building your vehicle correctly, you can get your tires started in the mud or the dirt or whatever you want to say, and then you can expand it from there, which direction you want to go.
Well, and what's valuable is to say that when you are choosing those parts, that you are choosing parts that allow you to expand forward,
Yes.
to fail forward, if you will,
Yep.
versus engineering yourself into a corner. And we
Yes.
use that constantly.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we want to talk about some other parts. So the big thing is tire wheels, right? And maintaining them. And little things, and there's so many different parts and pieces that make us uniquely us and how we try to present ourselves to our customer base. We do something as simple as 17-inch wheels because
It gives you more options.
there's
for the
more
future.
options, right? Aluminum wheels have to be, the torque applied to the lug nuts has to be double checked because of thermodynamics and thermal expansion and contraction with heat cycling of the wheels once you've installed at that appropriate torque.
Yep.
All of that mumbo jumbo just means you need to check your lug nuts.
Which is another
Yep.
big responsibility.
That's a responsibility.
And-
The
and-
bigger the tire, the deeper the offset, the more you have to check your wheels and tires.
In addition to that, too, though, a lot of people just don't want to take that extra effort themselves to do it. So that's where you got to find a responsible shop that you can take it back to that
Or
will do
someone you
that
can
for you.
trust to do
Somebody
it.
that you can trust that's going to do the proper specs.
And 100%. And that's part of that responsible, that
That's
responsible
still
process.
a responsibility of the owner,
Right?
though.
Correct.
And somebody actually, there was a conversation online over the weekend. They ordered wheels and tires from a big online distributor.
Getting heart palpitations over here.
And they big online distributor sent the product damaged.
Are we talking about the tires that were collapsed inside out almost?
No.
Oh, that
no,
was
no, no.
another one.
That was another
That
one.
was something else. But it was the idea that the product came damaged, and the individual was trying to light the company on fire.
Yeah.
And it turns out they're not that big of an online distributor. They just do a ton of volume. So they called in, and there's all like 3 people working behind the curtain, right?
And then how knowledgeable is that 3 people?
and they're not knowledgeable. They told the customer to go pound salt.
yeah.
And a couple of people got online and said, why didn't you go to a local shop who, if this situation would
Well, they have
arise,
this concept that they're going to save money somehow.
somehow you're going to save money. And that's part of the issue of great off-road parts come with great responsibility.
Yep.
The idea that nobody is getting obscenely rich. There's no Jeff Bezos of the off-road industry, folks, right? There's no super high volume, low margin
I'm going to let you in on a
business.
secret. It took me a long time, and I still cringe all the time with this. Go out into the world and you say, I want to do anything. It doesn't matter if it's your small house build or your Jeep you want to build or your 36 Ford you want to build, and it still bites me. Still to this day. And you see what you prefer to have. And I'm talking tire, wheel, motor, color of the siding, everything. Because there's always those little things that you have no idea that, oh, I wanted blue siding and somehow that's an extra $3,000 for blue
Sure.
siding.
Sure.
And then you get an idea of what that costs in relatively your market. That is what you're going to spend on that project.
And maybe even more.
And if you have to do it incrementally, which is completely fine, do it all the time,
100%.
does it all the time, that will cost you more. But that is the price, the base price of a mission. And I'm guilty because I said I want a 36 Ford, but I don't have the money to buy a 36 Ford. And I today have spent more money than I would have originally bought a running, driving 36 Ford for.
It's the tons on Chuck Norris.
Correct.
I spent more money and more time, and they're
Years.
still not as nice as
Yes.
if we could just buy a set of tons
Yes.
that were engineered for the purpose.
And the
that they
difference
have.
between with us is we will hopefully use our smacks in the head to help you not make those choices.
Right. So with that said, we got to keep on going as
Yeah.
far as actual specific products, right? The tire wheel, lower air pressure,
Yep.
maintenancing our lug nuts and making sure that they're appropriately torqued. Once you've
No
committed,
anti-seize.
yeah, you're
No
not putting
anti-seize.
anti-seize, but you've committed. Once you put that beadlock wheel and tire package on your Jeep,
Yep.
that looks sexy as
Oh,
all
yeah.
get out. It does, but it is a beadlock. It's not DOT approved.
Yep.
Hutchinsons are the only DOT approved production wheel at this time that fits on your Jeep. Otherwise,
and even not even get into that whole tirade.
no.
Now that you have a beadlock, now you have to check the beadlock.
You got to check the
bolts.
beadlock ring and the
And
bolts.
and you have to have a certain
Appropriately
amount of
installed.
tools to
Sure.
then know what that takes. If you get a flat, that is not, you're not going to go into Walmart and say, hey, I need a tire.
Correct. That's that great responsibility you
Yes.
have because, like you said, they're not fixing that at Walmart. They're going to look at that and they're going to be like, "Oof, you're on
I'm
your
tapped
own."
out.
Tapped.
And we have some customers that take that to an all new level and do a great job with it, where we actually had to make a spreadsheet with all the torque ratings for them. And
Yeah.
I'm
100%.
happy to do that every time. If you ask,
100%.
I'll give you the torque
And-
specs.
Give you the
that's what-
tools for success, right?
And that's why we'll say, you come in, you're like, okay, what do I want to do? This is the blueprint that we think better suits you, go home and think about it.
Yep. So with that said, as Blueprint and great off-road parts, we then get into, within our industry, we have both rubber Clevite bushings
Yep.
and flex joints, right?
Yep.
So I see that lift kit. I see those big tires and wheels. I want the big tires and wheels.
Yes.
Now I've listened to these guys at SFJ talk about big tires and low air pressure and different torque ratings on my wheels and my lug nuts. And those are all things, as an owner, you are responsible for either maintaining yourself or, working with a credible business to maintain.
Mhm.
Now we're onto that lift kit. Now, how are you using that lift kit? And you have to be really honest with yourself, because if you tell us that you're going to leap buildings and we put flex joints on there,
Yep.
then
The positives, you can flex like crazy.
you can flex like a slinky.
You're going to go and look like the awesome guy at the off-road park.
You're going
You're
to
going
look
to put your
awesome.
tire on your buddy's roof.
No doubt.
But then 6 months later, now that you've put 80,000 miles on it,
Yep.
now you hear a clunk.
Now you're going to hear a clunk. It's going to
Yep.
be a little thud, and you're going to go, well, my Jeep never did that before.
Never did that before, which you're correct.
You are correct.
And then that's where you find out, did I buy the good lift kit or the bad lift kit? If
Right.
you bought the cheap lift kit with those options, yes, you saved money, but now can you buy that replacement?
Can you buy the replacement? Can you buy the service pack? But even before you get to that, so the flex joints are greasable.
Yes.
Did
Do
you
you
actually
own a grease gun?
Do you own a grease gun?
Do you know what grease it takes?
Correct, right? All of those things. So
Can you access the grease fittings?
So a flex joint requires additional maintenance.
Yep.
Did you get done wheeling at your local park where there's sand and mud, and did you hose off that sandy mud particulate from building up around those flex joints, or did you allow that sand and mud to just stay there and permeate into the flex joints? Yes, I'm looking at you, Jason Simcox. I know you listen every week. and
Not to call out customers by name or
Yeah,
anything,
no,
Jason.
It's fine.
standing best friendship,
Hey,
we
he-
can start
he
to
grows trees in his
He
Jeep.
literally grew a tree in his Jeep, right? He has taken the responsibility. He understands that he then has to pay to improve
Yes.
things,
And
right?
he's okay with that. We fill the parking lot and it's fine.
So, so the thing is, we have to then be responsible or conscientious to say, okay, I put a flex joint under there. It has to continue to be maintained.
Yep.
It's going to have certain behaviors that were not ideal for a production vehicle.
Which
Understand?
is also why they chose not to put that on the stock Jeep.
That's exactly right. It's a good quality part. It's a great off-road part. It's a great part overall.
Yep.
It's serviceable. It's rebuildable. So long as you're maintaining it, it will last a very long
Appropriate amount of
time.
Yep.
And then you can take it off, rebuild it, and put it back
And honestly,
on.
part of it's being honest with yourself too. Are you going to take the time to grease it? Are you going to take the time to appropriately clean it? I know right up front, I'm not going to do that.
And I'll argue that the general consumer will not do that. That's why
No.
they don't come like that from the factory.
Correct.
However, if you know up front that you're not willing to do that, but you want that capability,
Then you have to pay for it.
again, remember that you're going to be paying somebody
Yep.
to do that, and that you need to take that
And with that
responsibility
said,
to
you
have
can
it done.
almost put your tire on your buddy's roof with rubber.
You
rubber.
can.
And I've done that, for a long time now, with my own personal Jeep. I went into it knowing I am not going to lay underneath my Jeep and grease it like I should.
Now,
Yes.
I'm just not.
I wasn't going to call Joe out, but Joe just called himself out. I thought I was going to get called out for choking an alternator with Utah dirt.
There it is.
Oh, alternator, a power
fan.
steering pulley, all your idler, your fan,
Yep.
all the Utah that's in your
So much
Jeep right
Utah.
now. Yep, no
You
doubt,
brought
Joe.
it back with you.
You did.
I mean, honestly, I think his Jeep is now part of Utah.
He probably needs to pay taxes on
He
that.
probably needs to pay
It's
taxes.
property tax
He
at this
probably
point.
has property tax that he should be paying on that Jeep. Dear Utah,
and
you
And
can
I-
just send the claim form here. We'll leave it in the Jeep for Joe.
and I know, best practice and then what you actually do or don't do. There is customers I am continually impressed by that they go wheeling one time, they come home, they remove all the tires,
Yes.
they clean all the brakes, spotless clean. They may take the brakes apart to clean them. I'm not that guy. I got too much life.
I
going
envy
on.
those customers.
do.
though, right?
Like-
But see, the thing is, here's the thing, and this is my own path in life right now.
Yep.
They work their job, right?
Yep.
They build up that Jeep as their second vehicle.
Yep.
And that is their primary focus.
Yes.
You and I can't stay
How
to
do you have one vehicle?
I don't know, but I'm
How?
jealous of them.
I know.
They're so
it's
satisfied.
so pretty.
It's so pretty. They keep
Yes.
it so nice.
Yes.
They could turn the key and comfortably and confidently go wheel it tomorrow.
somewhere. Yeah, 'cause
right?
we work on it.
Right.
We don't have time to work on our own
We
stuff.
don't work on our own stuff.
I'm watching stuff
isn't
rust
that
on
the
my
truth?
Jeep.
My
fall
wife
off.
was like, she was like, I got to work on my wife's Jeep so that we can get it on vacation here in the
Yeah.
near future. I got to do all the things.
Yeah.
All the things because she hasn't
See,
shut
I,
it off
I did
in
the
3
bare
years.
minimum when I had to go like 3 hours. I was like, I should.
You're
rotate
3
my
hours.
tires.
I got to go 14 plus hours, then drive it for a week on the beach, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, that's fine. I'll just take Chuck Norris to do what I need to do this week. And I thought, but will you?
yeah,
She
she will. She's a good sport.
is a good sport.
But you're kind of getting out of the
It's great off-road parts. but it's-
Maserati,
Yeah.
and you're getting into the Lamborghini, and now you need to do more maintenance.
You got to do more maintenance. All right. So we have the flex joints versus the rubber cleavite.
Yes.
So let's talk about control arms in general. As we move up control arms, the technology in our off-road industry in general is what's called jam nuts.
Yes.
All right. And this is one of the things that
And they're very big nuts. I did that to him.
He actually intentionally
I
did
did
that
that
this
time.
time.
he did. He
That
did.
was
have-
not an
but-
innocent
But
plug.
know,
do you have a wrench that fits that?
So
Now he's trying to save
Yeah,
himself.
he's trying to save himself. And
I
I'm
had
trying
a-
to
I had
make.
a
I'm trying to
goal.
be good here. I'm trying to make good choices. So here's the thing,
Something's
folks.
wrong. You guys switch places.
We have been dealing with jam nut technology for a couple decades now,
Yes.
right? And it's super simple, right? So after our off-road parts can be made with not infinite adjustability,
Yes.
but a plethora of adjustability, allowing us to elongate or shorten wheelbase
Mm-hmm.
or adjust caster within within reason,
I
right?
guess we really should start with you can buy fixed that are not adjustable,
Right.
which are over here. We don't have to do any maintenance
Yes.
relatively.
Yes.
And then we get in the middle where we have rubber and adjustable.
Yes.
And then we have over here with Chuck Norris land where we have adjustable
And
with
flex.
with flex.
And we're talking about great off-road parts. So
Yes.
let's focus on the great off-road parts and great off-road responsibility, and saying we're the fixed folks,
Relatively, you can just drive it.
relatively you just
Yeah.
drive it and enjoy it, so long as that's what you chose to purchase in the first place.
Yep.
But those of you who have the flex joints and now you have the adjustable control arms, ultimately you have something that has to affix that adjustment.
Mhm.
There's very few, but there are a couple manufacturers who have what's called a pinch bolt.
Mhm.
And in our world, that's or a
awesome.
clamp style clamp or adjustment. In our world, that's ideal, right?
Yes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so that's one of the reasons why we'll oftentimes recommend Iron Rock Off-Road, and that's one of our primary. But they're not alone. There's actually a couple other manufacturers. I believe Synergy offers it sometimes.
Yep.
And there's a couple other manufacturers who have that design. However, most manufacturers, because it's simply easier, because that technology already existed, have a jam nut.
Mhm.
And it's the concept. It's the old concept of when you were a kid or a young person and you were just taking two nuts on a bolt, and as you run them down, they stop moving.
Yep.
Right? It's that simple. The idea is that you're running them against each other to create a fixed point.
Mhm.
Now, the issue is that on an engineering level, there's still an applied pressure that's moving back and forth.
And we'll call it a torque load. You locking those two nuts down is applying a torque load onto that
Yes.
threaded piece. I will argue that you're never going to get the torque load out of two jam nuts or a jam nut as you will a pinch bolt.
I agree entirely at that nitty gritty
Yes.
level, right? So in the
But
early
the
ages,
fail point that you were starting to say is the fact that you're actually having force applied against that.
against that locking, right?
So it's going to expand and contrast.
not only
differently
do you have
and
that torque load between
loosen.
the two locking nut surfaces,
Yep.
right? But we have in this sense, we have a lateral pressure running through the center line of that applied torque. So not
Yes.
only do we have insufficient applied torque on the nuts themselves,
Well, then we go and flex the Jeep, and now we're making that want to rotate.
we're making it rotate, and we have the lateral pressure.
Mhm.
So So there's a whole bunch of energy transfer that is happening on that control arm.
Yep.
And what happens?
They loosen up
They loosen up.
Yep.
They loosen up all the time.
Which
Here's-
is where I was like, do you have a wrench for that? Because after you go wheeling, your responsibility is to
Double
lay
check.
underneath there and make sure everything's tight.
So
Otherwise, you will have clanks, banks,
And I'm going to take a
bangs
step further. You can use the red Loctite
all
and,
day long.
all day long, and then take it on a good wheeling trip. You're going to come back and you're going to find
get
some of those
a
have
quarter-
backed off a
a
little.
quarter turn or so.
Yeah.
now, we, as an aside, what we do to insulate our customer base is we use torque marks or timing marks.
Yes.
It's one of
Just
the things
makes
I'm
it
very
quicker.
proud about. And what we do is we do a line across the two nuts or the two locking surfaces, the clamping surfaces. And
I'll usually
Uh,
even go on into the threads to make sure that you can see if the whole thing has back.
the idea is we're doing that to make for quick identification of if that nut has backed off.
That
or-
way you're
or
not
the-
throwing a
loosened.
wrench on
And-
every
and
single
that's-
one.
Correct.
And that's something that you should continue to do because those wear off when you mud and
Sure.
washing and
Yep.
that kind of stuff. But you can continue to do that yourself.
You can, and that's part of that great responsibility of ensuring that your investment goes as far as possible
Yep.
on your suspension. Now, what ends up happening in the industry is a lot of manufacturers end up doing a lot of customer service because this technology simply is not customer proof, right?
Yes.
The manufacturer from
And the customer doesn't know what they're buying
because the customer doesn't know what they're buying. Because circle back to that individual online who just goes into Blog Garage and just says, "Hey, I want tires and wheels and a lift kit," and they get sold something.
Yep.
That customer doesn't know all of these things,
Yes.
right? And oftentimes they're just going in, and there are, I know, a gasp businesses out there who are just taking advantage of people.
Yep.
They're just selling product, and they're claiming that it's your responsibility to have
Well,
understood it before you ask them for
And
it.
then when we continue on to springs, we just had a customer come in and he said, I invested in this brand spring. I put it on my Jeep. It's a very nice Jeep. It's very modified. It's very big tire. It's been properly re-geared, all these things. And he says, I've only had them about 6 months. I'm already noticing it. It's not as tall as it used to be.
Sure.
And I had to sadly say, well, you bought this brand spring, and that is what they are known to do.
Yes.
And you saved money when you bought those springs, but now you have to expect a shorter lifespan out of that spring.
Yes. And it's going to go back to that, you get what you pay for, and the idea of the car that you said, hey, you could buy it for 30G or you could build it for 3 years and you're going to have 45 in it,
Yes.
Well, and you have to be careful because the get what you pay for comment, there are times where a lower quality part costs more just because of a brand name and a brand
Yes.
association, but the part may actually be lesser quality
Or
than a less
in
expensive
a
one.
really bad situation where the shop takes the opportunity to make even more money profit on that part, and you're none the wiser. So you've gotten a low quality part, paid the big quality price,
yes.
and at the end of the day, you are no the wiser or
Joe said it's like the time he bought a digital blinker fluid for his analog blinkers. He'll never live that one down.
hate it
Poor
when that happens.
Linda. Linda, you're a saint.
Yes.
So here's the thing. Jam nuts in the industry, we switched because ultimately quality manufacturers were having a ton of money out because people weren't maintaining these. They did not recognize that they
and
needed to
one-
make sure that they stayed jammed.
One more thing on that: the coarser the thread, the easier it'll back off.
Yes.
And that is something. If you look at a cheaper quality kit, and you look at the threads of theirs, that will be a coarse thread. A more high-end kit will have a fine thread.
And if you're unfamiliar, coarse and fine is just basically
The-
small waves versus big waves.
Yeah,
Big
The
waves.
gaps between the threads.
Yep. The peaks and valleys are much larger on coarse, and the peaks and valleys or the waves are much smaller or tighter together.
And what that comes down to
fine
is
thread.
is friction contact points. More surface area is contacted. You have
Yes.
a higher
Higher
friction rate.
higher torque ability as well.
Yes.
So, and you'll see all your OE manufacturers will use more of a fine thread because they
Yep.
need that bolt to go on at a particular predictable torque applied rate, and then arguably not come off.
And if you ever work on a 30s Ford, you learn almost every single hardware bolt on the thing is fine thread.
Isn't that interesting?
Uh,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Linda apparently said I get that a lot.
I'm sure she does. So as far as we have, your actual bolt and thread structure, we have the jam nut. Eventually, a number of in the hardware industry, you have star lock washers, you have standard lock washers. A number of the folks in our industry try to use something called a Belleville or a beveled washer.
And then the ones that don't do that have a nylock washer.
Have a nylock, and so ultimately, all of those are attempting to
resist backing off.
resist backing off. So as a consumer who is somebody who's opted to do this because you just wanted big tires and wheels, now you need to recognize that this is additionally part of your ownership. Now this is part of your responsibility.
Now, since you brought up the nylocks and different types of locking mechanisms, it's also important to note that if you're servicing it, certain hardware cannot be reused.
Yes. Like you put a nylock on twice and it relatively will not hold anymore.
Yes, locking nuts in general, nylocks on stainless steel,
Yep.
bolts and hardware. So I mean, all the time I get that
Then
question
they don't back
for.
off.
I get
And
that question.
if you use heat, you're never using the nylock again.
Yeah, that too.
So there's a bunch of little icky pickies there as far as your great responsibility. When it comes to steering, the same jam nut technology can be utilized in steering, and now that's lots and lots of lateral applied load, lots of jam nut technology. So those things, but
and that's another spot where tire offset and weight of the tire and wheel package all play into that as well.
right. So we like the idea of these products, but they are not engineered. Understand, they are not engineered for longevity. They
No.
are engineered for robustness in the
Like in a
short
very
haul.
in a specific application.
Correct. And so I think that it's valuable to understand that these great off-road parts, great off-road responsibility has to do with having the best product for a dead sprint versus a marathon, right? And it achieves a goal. It gets you the big tires, gets you the big wheels. It allows you to leap buildings and wheel off-road, but it does not necessarily mean it's going to last for 100,000 miles.
No.
And that's what's like a big misnomer in our industry.
Well, another big misnomer is they always think that, oh, this company, because they look like they do, they have to be huge. They have to be on the same level as Jeep. There is not a manufacturer I know of that is anywhere close to an OE style. And everyone knows about recalls. Everyone knows about problems that they have with an OE vehicle. All of them have that.
Yes.
They have gone out and they have tested that thing at minus crazy temperature and high temperatures and tons of miles, and they still have failures. So how do you expect a smaller company that doesn't have that budget to have better quality than that?
I think that's a great part, and understanding that's part of the off-road industry and part
Yes.
of
Modifying cars in general.
modifying vehicles in general.
Well,
and
and so often I hear people say, well, it's just a Jeep thing.
No.
My Jeep's always broken. I'm always replacing parts. The question is, one, are you taking that responsibility to service those parts?
Yep.
And are you taking that responsibility to have good quality parts that you can service?
Yes.
and then maintaining it appropriately
then
once
are
you
you-
have them.
And
You
are
know,
you being
That's
honest with yourself about that?
Correct.
Because it's easy to blame the vehicle.
totes. So we have, tires and wheels and suspension. We have different components, right? Big offsets and bead locks and big tires and jam nuts and pinch bolts and flex joints. We then get into other aesthetics as far as wiring and lights,
Yep.
right? We're going to add all this auxiliary lights to the vehicle, or maybe even sound as far as sound system is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And then burn
And-
the Jeep down because
And I see it all the time. I saw another one happen where somebody's talking about, oh, yeah, my Jeep burnt down and these
Yeah.
things are so prone to do that. And I thought to myself,
Nope.
no, No, I am the king of burning vehicles, and I've never burnt a Jeep down to the ground.
It's threatened you.
Well, no
You
doubt.
come to terms with it.
But even then, it's not because of poor wiring.
But it's not because of poor wiring. It's not because the Jeep is inherently bad or
Yes.
problematic. It's because of a very specific and identifiable issue.
Yep.
These people who are doing poor wiring, they're upgrading fuses so that it's not burning out. They're using insufficient relays. I mean, we are just bombarded by it as an industry. We see the Jeeps come in and have these electrical issues.
I'll take it one a good example of this is you buy a more economic winch. I'm not going to name any names, but people will be able to figure it out. And they will come with a circuit breaker or a switch that's mounted at the battery. That is because they're isolating themselves from the Joe average installer that is going to run that power cable and pinch it between the hood, the grill, the frame. They're going to rub it on
Yes.
the alternator pulley and that kind of stuff. And they just tell you to isolate them, only turn it on when you need it.
Yes.
Then you buy a high quality winch and it does not come with that product.
Yes.
That's because they expect you to come to their level and install it correctly, safely, and appropriately because you honestly do not need a switch
An inline
or a
switch
big fuse on your winch. You will find out the limitations of that when you go to try to use that winch for everything it's got.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. We've had a couple people who have, thinking that they were benefiting themselves, attempted to do an inline fuse for a winch. And a winch actually, during its working load, will draw substantial
Yes.
amperage. I mean, a phenomenal.
I can
250
understand
plus.
the thought of that, but all you're doing is causing you a reason the winch will not work when
And I
you
think
need it.
that is a great example of number one thing that can burn a vehicle down or really destroy your investment is electrical fire.
Yes.
Right? More so
Yeah.
than anything. And yet people go, but I like the look of the winch on my Jeep.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, okay, well, if you do that, then it needs to be installed and utilized appropriately.
Yes.
Is the cable chafing because you ran it between a non-grommeted hole or across the metal, harsh metal surface?
And we haven't even gotten into winch use appropriately, hooking the cable onto the
No,
vehicle.
that's not even.
straps usage, which is a whole nother, could have a whole podcast on.
And
Sure.
honestly,
Appropriate.
we should do a topic about the great responsibility of recovery.
winching, recovery.
100%.
Yes, 100%. But that is yet a whole nother dichotomy of that idea, is because now I have this tool, now there's a great responsibility of that as well. But just getting it on the Jeep and installed is a big responsibility. And then are you maintaining that piece of equipment?
Right.
Because some places you're going to rely on that for your life. Are you going to be stuck out here for days, or you're going to get out and it's just that was fun.
Sure.
Maintaining the electrical connections, Green Goblin stuff.
Yep. And then that gets into, are you maintaining your battery?
Yep.
I know where I can push it. I got a battery in my truck that I put money on. It's 10 years plus old. At this point, it's a game. How many times is it going to start? Every year, I'm like, this is going to be the year, and that battery's like, I got you.
The difference though is
But I'm not going to be upset when that battery dies.
you're
Sure.
you're prepared for it to die on you and leave you
Yes.
stranded. You have contingency
Yes.
plans.
Yes. And like I said, at this point, it's a game. Now, if I'm going to go put my family in the vehicle and I'm going to go out in the backcountry and I'm going to be with just a couple people for days, I have a very expensive battery in that vehicle.
Sure.
Darla's saying, I wonder how big a book would be if you guys wrote a book on how to build a Jeep correctly.
You wouldn't be able to read it because they can't spell.
Joe
It
doesn't
would
want
also
to.
put you to sleep. So,
Joe doesn't want to talk about batteries dying.
no doubt. Is there any other? So and the winches are great too because we could get into steel versus synthetic, but that's
Oh,
ultimately
a whole nother podcast.
I think that the one thing that I would say is that people are really attracted to synthetic cable right now, and I just be very, very short on my explanation. If you're gonna have synthetic hanging out on the front of your Jeep, and
Cover
you're not going to be a person who's using it regularly, then you need to cover it from UV
Yes.
breakdown. right?
And if you go and you dip the bumper in the water, which I'm guilty of, you're supposed to come home, completely pull that off the winch, clean it,
Yes.
and put it back on.
Yes, and synthetic can be hand washed in a bucket of like Dawn dish soap. I
Yes.
think somebody will probably
Yeah.
email in and tell us the appropriate
We
way.
should know that because we should be doing that. But
Yeah, yeah. This is that reality again. You're right.
Do as
but
we say, not as we do.
if it is,
I'm also not going to be mad when the synthetic breaks, and I'm like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
What's my contingency plan?
Sure, and that's the thing, and that's the advantage to the synthetic because you can always retie it off. If you
Yeah.
do have steel winch cable, understand that not all stainless steel is created equal, and that you should oil it as well,
Yes.
or put a protective
it's-
coating on
and,
it.
And steel cable is very important at how you wrap it back on the drum after
Yes.
you used it. I was exposed to that. I have a friend that is, well, actually a couple friends that have done crane operation. They are very detailed on their cable wrap and how the cable is maintained, because at that point your lives are in risk. And they have a fit with when they come in and they see winch cables all a mess on Jeeps.
Well, especially because if it gets pinched wrong or bent wrong, it's
Mm.
actually
Lim-
deteriorating that steel cable.
100%. And it also lowers the capacity a lot.
Correct.
So, is fascinating stuff when it comes to just say even the winch installation. We see it, we like it, we want it,
Yep.
but are you actually prepared to insulate yourself from the deterioration of that,
Yep.
or are you going to protect your investment and maintain it going forward?
And I'm going to continue on that theme and touch some people. You see the fancy headlights, and I want the fancy headlights. Oh my goodness, they're expensive.
Yes,
So
but
now-
Amazon has them for $165.
So then I buy this non-DOT approved, low quality light, and I install it on my Jeep. And now the semi truck driver driving at me is blinded.
Yes,
And then I don't adjust the headlights or even take any appropriate measures. And then the worst ones are some JKJLs. The Jeep gets thoroughly upset because of the backfeed or a draw or that kind of stuff. And now your Jeep actually has a runnability issue because of headlights.
no doubt. Or you do a bunch of, you have some other high quality, other accessory lighting, and then you have fun color changing headlights, but they don't have the same lasting power. The
Yes.
lens hazes out, smokes out,
Constantly.
and realistically speaking,
They become
folks,
fish tanks. That's
the
the other one we see a
fish
lot.
tanks, a lot of
Well, that's
moisture
the halogen
intrusion.
fluid.
Oh,
The blinker fluid. Here, the reality, folks, is there's not a quality headlight manufacturer
To date that we are aware of.
that has fun colored halos in their lights.
It's honestly, and I can understand to a point. It's like going in and asking that race car team to maintain your Camry.
Yes.
They look at that as almost below them. They are there to make you a high quality light that is going to focus down the road, get you through that fog, through that snowstorm safely. And I don't even think blinky colored changing lights is on their radar,
Correct.
almost below their status.
And there are a couple options. I think it was XK Glow actually has an external ring that fits on
So you can
the
have
headlights.
your cake and
Yep.
eat it too.
So you can try and have your cake and eat it too. That way you can have a Ridgid, a truck light, a JW speaker,
Yep.
some of those manufacturers as far as your headlights are concerned. And then a couple of these manufacturers give you, an external ring that looks nice and it
Yep.
fits that need. You still have to wire it in appropriately though.
Yes.
and
right?
then if that ring fails eventually, or when it fails, you still have a working headlight.
Yes.
Sure.
100%.
So there's a bunch of parts and pieces, and we didn't even get into like RAM assist steering,
I know.
which is all about fluid capacity and the thermodynamics of your power steering hoses, heating and cooling and routing
and
them.
Yet more maintenance. Of
Right. Air
special
onboard.
fluid, special hoses. Are they getting chafed on things? Did I
Right.
chafe it on the last thing? Okay, now I need to replace that hose.
Onboard air, overlanding camping trailers that have refrigerators and fuel delivery and solar panels and all that kind of stuff. There is yet a whole further set of things that people are logging on to the Book of Faces or YouTube right now, and they're watching ads and other influencers going, man, this is such cool stuff. And that's cool, and you could blow your paycheck on that, but you don't actually have the money to then follow through the process to make sure that it stays nice, or maybe even the education, the knowledge to make sure that it stays nice. And that's what we want to do, is equip you and say, check your lug nuts, check your wheels, check your torque marks on your jam nuts.
Yep.
ensure your tire pressure, check your fluids.
Yep.
You know,
Wash your vehicle regularly,
vehicle
especially the
underneath
underneath.
Yes.
if we're going to be doing these
Maintain
things,
your soft top or hard top.
Yeah.
Totally. If we're going to be doing these things, we have to then understand that we have entered into kind of a reciprocated process.
Yep.
I've recently been exposed to, and as a society, we are moving further and further away from individually maintaining your vehicle. I mean, 70 years ago, in your owner's manual, they showed you how to adjust your valves. Right?
Yes.
You were expected to have a feeler gauge.
Yep.
And and a 1/2-inch wrench in your onboard toolbox at any
Yep.
given time.
Well, and it was a pride factor to be in your driveway working on your car, waxing it, doing
I mean,
everything.
and I think that's
Mainly
still
because I own one. Actually, it goes beyond that. Points adjustment, valve adjustment, retorquing your axle nuts, adjustment of your brakes.
100%.
That was all on the owner's
That
shoulders.
was all on the owner's expectation. And I've recently been exposed to more and more people, especially because I am such a purveyor of the newest automotive technologies, that these newer vehicles are in a sense, self-driving, self-parking. When they have something that needs to be maintenance, they're actually sending a maintenance report back to
Yes.
their manufacturer.
They're ordering their own parts.
They could be ordering their own parts
Yep.
even. And so the idea is, it's amazing how many people I'm getting exposed to who are not falling. They still fancy themselves car enthusiasts,
Yes.
but at a different. They want to wash and wax and show up in the cool, sleek, streamlined. The door seals are nice. They close differently. They have less wind noise than ever before.
Yep.
Listen, folks, I don't care if it's from a Patriot to a Wrangler. We drive big boxes on wheels that we expect to take us in rugged environments.
Yes.
We have to then be equal party to the process, because it's not just the sleek, modern, EV inspired vehicle that's sending data reports and maintenance reports back to a manufacturer and alerting you in that capacity. We have to clean the door seals because now we have a square hardtop roof that is hard to keep water out of.
Yep.
I don't care. It's the best of conditions.
Yeah, you could have the best seal going, and it will.
It's a
leak.
big square box running down the road. That's not ideal for keeping, weather outside
Yes.
in comparison to a really sleek, modern vehicle. We cannot take the same thing that Motor Trend has said, and Car and Driver magazines have said in their magazines for years, and apply it to our off-road industry.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be equal party and participant to it. So anything else? We talked about winch cables and electric. We talked about headlights a little bit, wheels and tires and suspension and steering. Engine maintenance is just kind of that's just everybody should be doing a little bit of
Yeah.
that. Is there anything else specific to, with great off-road parts comes great off-roaders? CVs, RCVs. Let me talk about this because if you're a JK owner, from the factory, your Jeep had CV drive shafts.
Yep.
And JL owners, some of your Jeeps are coming with CV axle shafts. CV stands for constant velocity.
Which the OEs use because you have a better transfer of power that is smoother, quieter, does not change speed going up and down, where a U-joint, old technology, will speed up, slow down. That is where vibrations happen.
100%.
That is why they're going to these things. And I hear people all the time, well, that's stupid, and they wear out, and I don't know how to change it. And
Yes.
yes.
And you might not be any the wiser that this is a technology that is under your vehicle. But understand, it is very intentionally there by the engineers to give you a pleasing experience that is quiet and smooth, because the bell curve of consumers have decided that that's what they want out of their vehicles by today's
I don't
standards.
even go one farther. The diameter of the dry shaft. They go with a larger dry shaft because that slows down the rotation of that dry shaft, makes the slip last a little longer, makes it a little quieter. The smaller the diameter, the faster it has to spin.
Yes.
The more maintenance it requires, the more greasing it needs.
Harder
that
to
kind of
keep it in
stuff.
true, so on and so forth.
And that's important to know when you need to get in and out of that original technology. And we have that conversation all the time. We'll say, okay, we're going to do this lift kit for you. We're going to make your Jeep look fly.
Yep.
But in the next 6 months to a year, this is your list.
Yes.
This is what you need to be thinking of. And you can wait until it fails and then do something about it. But this will be a concern.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with CVs, understand that they were engineered to work in a very
As a straight of a plane as
straight of a plane as possible, a predictable plane as possible. And they will not grenade necessarily like a U-joint will.
Yes.
And so ultimately,
They just sound like angry sparrows.
so what ends up happening is they click, pop, bang, they make little growly noises,
chirpings.
but they
Chirping,
don't
yep.
actually then grenade. Whereas a U-joint that sits too long might get frozen in a spot, give you bad vibrations, and then it will just shear off, break, and cause
Yes.
lots of problems.
Exit stage left.
It is serviceable, and it is arguably a little, it is robust. It's a little more simple technology, but it can work in kind of multiple angles, a universal joint, whereas a CV joint wants to work in a very flat, straight plane. So your drive shafts, we're constantly having to upgrade JK and JL drive shafts.
Specifically the front.
And when we say upgrade, we're actually reverting you back to an older technology, but one that works better for our purposes. We have deviated from that engineering. We are now with great off-road parts, have great off-road responsibility.
Yep.
We need it to be in phase. That's one of the things that we see all the time with a cheaper drive shaft. It comes in
Yep.
out of phase.
Constantly.
Greasable U-joints make the drive shaft cheaper. Again, if
you
you're
gonna-
going to get under there and be the person who pulls all the wheels off, disassembles the brakes, puts everything back together, greases every grease orifice, cool, good for you, do your thing. I'm not that guy. No, I don't think anybody sitting in this studio is that guy.
Nope.
You know? And you have to be very real with yourself and say, okay, I actually want the solid U-joints because I'm going to take their 60 to 100,000 miles.
Yes.
And yes, one might get contaminated and
Yep.
fail at 2,000 miles.
Yep.
I'm going to take that as a calculated risk because otherwise,
I want to, if you're honest with yourself, by the time you buy the gun, buy the grease, take the time, you've spent that money.
yes,
You have the perception of making it last. And you do need to do that. Don't get me wrong. There is other stuff you need to do. But you aren't saving money if you're really
Sure.
honest with yourself.
sure. And so the last comment I want to make about CVs or RCVs is, yes, they will last. Yes, they are robust. Yes, they are actually a superior smoothness and quietness of energy transfer initially. But eventually they do depreciate and then they get noisy. Yeah, they're still working. RCV as a manufacturer will say, hey, they're not going to grenade on you,
But they're going to make noise.
but they're going to make noise.
Yep.
And no one can determine what that matters to you. You know, can you run muds on the freeway and drive to Cleveland every day? As long as you're willing to buy the tires, yes, you can.
And yeah, as long as you don't mind the noise, the vibration, and it comes out your pocketbook,
Yep.
then drive the muds to Cleveland every day, or to Charlotte, or to Timbuktu. I don't care. you know?
Where the difference is that when you are mad at that tire because you put it in the inappropriate environment.
Yes. So with great off-road parts comes great off-road responsibility. It's kind of a fun little superhero play. I think that we made enough impassioned,
Yes.
call for you to be
The
cognizant.
horse is slightly beaten.
The horse is slightly beaten. I hope that we're going to reach some new people in this process.
Yes.
If you are already a student or family member of SFJ, you are a customer of ours, you will recognize our process and some of our talking points from this already. But if you're a new person, hopefully you will take some information here and be able to take that home and be an educated investor in those products. So I think unless you guys have anything to add, we have some big events happening. So instead of hashtag not sponsored, we're going to be doing hashtag where's
You're gonna make him
SFJ.
sad because he didn't have another opportunity for another transition.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? It could be like a Where's Waldo inspired.
Where's GSFJ gonna be?
You know what? Scott's on fire today.
I wasn't
And-
ready for him to sing today.
and he just did a jingle. And if you don't cut that out and make that into a
It's
thing-
gonna be a soundbite.
Oh, it's gonna be a-
I actually,
I'm so
I
happy.
want to hear the rest of that jingle.
No, I'm good.
No, he's done now.
I'm done now.
I called him out.
Time is gone.
All right.
Well, no. How about Neil does the second half of that jingle roll?
Oh, oh,
With it.
too much pressure. Too much pressure. I'm. It's like
Are you under pressure?
I'm
Under
under
pressure.
pressure. All right, that was actually I was gonna mix that with
Oh boy.
honey,
Anyway,
honey, da, 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 da.
so where are we gonna be?
Where is SFJ in the world? All right. So first and foremost, folks, coming up immediately this week, you've seen it repped on all of our social platforms. We're doing a hard push because we have a very unique opportunity. iStraight, if you're close enough to me, I keep talking about it being a little serendipitous. And get on my soapbox for 1 second. I'm a fairly religious person. I really talk about divine intervention and how that has guided me in life in general.
Was not planned.
And this is a fully unplanned situation, and I'm just kind of holding on to the reins. Jesus, take the wheel. Not exactly in that scenario, but
Also takes great responsibility.
It takes great responsibility, right? And very much a lot of hard work and participation. But in a very unique situation, SFJ has 2 vehicles that are being credited to our build process, being involved and registered for one of the upcoming Mecum Auto auctions. If you are unfamiliar with Mecum, it is a elite auto auction that happens at about 7 to 9 different locations around the country.
Yes.
This one happens to be here in eastern Pennsylvania, in the state capital, central to eastern Pennsylvania in Harrisburg. It's a very cool, amazing gathering of collectible vehicles, highly desirable, and just a
It's
rip-roaring
really
good time for
who's
auto.
who of vehicles.
It really is, right? It really is. And we really encourage you to check out some of their online listings. And if you go to the Mecum Harrisburg listing, you will see 2 different Jeeps, which are actually both, wagons, reasonably speaking.
And if you don't want to spend, the next 4 years building it and slowly putting $40,000 in it, you can just go there and buy it.
You could.
I'm just gonna say I'm a little disappointed in Chip. He just now joined in. What are you doing, Chip?
Oh,
Chip, where you been, man?
Even
Anyways,
referenced it.
welcome to the podcast,
Hey,
Chip.
Chip. So as far as Mecum is concerned, we had a customer. Actually, we had an individual found it a year ago,
Yep.
right? And if you're unfamiliar with that, great build videos about the process of that. It's a fuel-injected, digitally controlled, semi-restored, barn-found wagon, 79 Wagoneer.
Grand Wagoneer.
Beautiful piece from full-size Jeep. And so there's a phenomenal representation of what Scott has brought to the vintage restoration market.
I just want to add, at the beginning of the podcast, we talked about how people will schedule meetings, they're driving trucks, they're working, pretending to work on facing shelves, whatever. Chip has added a new one. He's sitting in a doctor's office waiting for his appointment, watching this podcast.
Perfect, Chip.
I love it, Chip.
That's fine.
Chip, take off the ear pod or the earbuds or the AirPods or whatever, and just put it on speaker and let the whole office join in with the conversation. We can say hi to everybody and
Yeah.
entertain them in the
It's
process.
like, can you delay my appointment for 5 minutes?
Bring the doctor on. I mean, it's good. We'll have a whole conversation with him. All right. So we have found it that the individual purchased it, took it to Florida, tooled around in it, enjoyed it, had their piece. Now they're ready to move on. A year or so later, it's heading to auction, and that, as I mentioned, is a great representation of what SFJ produces, but not just what SFJ as a whole produces, but the craftsmanship that Scott brings to the table and the kind of vehicle that he is capable of seeing through in from start to finish as a barn find restoration process and then a daily driver. And then additionally, we have I call it the world's most expensive XJ. It was a fantastic Jeep Cherokee XJ. It's a 99 that we started building in and around 2012, 2013.
Which
So-
he handpicked. We literally came to us before he bought the Jeep. What year do I buy? What do I need to look for?
Yes.
And he followed that to a T
Yes.
and literally found the Jeep and bought it.
Yes, and he had been periodically investing and building it over the course of a decade
Yep.
with us. And it is just a hardcore performance-driven build. I always used to joke, Jim, the owner, actually wanted a Ferrari and instead built a Cherokee.
Yep.
And
They're both red.
yeah, they're both red, and that was his expectation. And Greg, our lead performance mechanic, just delivered tenfold on it. And so
Jimmy went to the point where technology changed as we built this Jeep, and we built it one way at the beginning, and then the aftermarket said, "We see you. We will make these really cool parts,
and we'll make them a little better." And they weren't available when we started building the Jeep.
And Jim says, "I see that. I want that, and I will upgrade the Jeep accordingly."
Correct.
And did things a couple times.
A couple times. We did a couple different iterations of traction devices. I misspoke in one of the videos. I said it had an electronic locker, Eaton or an Auburn. I don't remember, just an e-locker. He said, no, we actually, when we got rid of the Dana 30 and we went to a custom Curry high pinion Dana 44, it's cool hybrid JK44 front end, we went to an air locker, and he went to onboard air.
Yep.
And Jim kept adding. When PSC came out and we did the hydro assist, we had a very rudimentary pump to box delivery.
Yep.
And as PSC polished their product and said, hey, we need capacity and cooling, we need extra coolers, we need
the special valves,
valving, we need additional capacity out of a bigger reservoir. Jim said, hey, I'm going to do that. I'm going to invest in that. And we made it all that much better. And so it's a phenomenal representation of what we've been able to do over a decade, and specifically Greg's craftsmanship. So this weekend, you're going to want to watch for some of our live updates Thursday and Friday. Obviously, we'll be doing some YouTube content for that. But we have a great opportunity to head down as a team. With that said, we'll be running on limited capacity. Jeffrey will be holding down the fort at our shop.
Poor Jeff. Be nice to Jeff.
And
as you take out my microphones, I see what you're doing. With it.
And so we'll be doing the Meekum thing. Coming up in about a week and a half, both August 5th, is that weekend is Toledo Jeep Festival. And I know things are well underway for the planning there. We should have hashtag Not a Restoration is currently planned to be there on display. Thank you, Ryan. We're working out those details with the event organizers. Thank you, Jerry, to make sure that that's a possibility. We're flexible in that, but look forward to having the Jeep displayed there. Additionally, an event that I hyped up a couple months ago or a month and a half ago was the Tool City Jeep Jam, which if you are, more Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio, might be more advantageous for you. It's kind of like a road rally or a poker run to a number of different local businesses, some good raffle prizes, just a really interesting way to get out and get involved with your Jeep. That's not that rugged off-road experience, but among other cool Jeepers and off-roaders.
Mm-hmm. And that's
so a couple big events happening
and
that
that's
weekend.
Just the big ones. There's so many events going on.
So many.
We don't
right
want to
now.
leave anybody out, but we just can't say all of them.
Well, right.
And then next week, you're going to be on vacation
Yes.
down in Outer Banks.
Yes. Driving a Jeep on the beaches.
Which is literally a Jeep event almost.
It's for me, it's a
For
little
him,
bit of
yeah.
a Jeep Mecca thing. And if you're, I try to tell people, because everybody, fancies Nag's Head or Kill Devil Hills or all that kind of stuff. We actually go to the National Seashore. So if you go down to the very southern tip of Hatteras Island. So
just a tip.
Just the tip. Here we are, full circle on the day. Thanks,
Wow,
Scott.
Scott again making the intentional comment. That's so weird.
I wonder what happened to Scott over the weekend.
Right?
My
Because he's
thought
usually
process.
so innocent.
Yeah, he's
got
not
hurt.
fired up. He's on a gelin right now.
Yeah, he is.
So as far as when you go down to the Hatteras Seashore, if you haven't made this part of your Jeep experience, for me, I'm just absolutely smitten and bit by it. There are miles and miles and miles of sandy beaches that once you attain the appropriate permit, and as long as you're a responsible 4x4 owner and enthusiast, taking that responsibility, you can just get out and cruise on the sand and on kind of some off-road inspired trails. And I'm thankful for this resource that exists in America. We don't talk about some of these national spaces like the Allegheny National Forest and some of their off-road logging and access trails. Hatteras Island has some of the similar, and so I'll be down there with the wife's mall crawler this time. We've had my dad's LJ. That's the SFJ 4x4 Unlimited. I've had Chuck Norris down there, and this time we'll be taking the wife's Jeep down. So really, really looking forward to that. Obviously, it's going to be – we have to get there first.
Yep.
And we've got a lot of work, and we've got Mecum and stuff, so we've got to hunker down, get our priorities ironed out, and make it happen. But I'm looking forward to that. So I'll be out of the office and kind of ideally off the radar a little bit.
Yep. And as far as the podcast goes for next week, it's going to be kind of playing the cards and see what happens if we can be here for you. But as of right now, I think the plan is that don't expect the podcast.
That's right. That's right. So we had originally had a couple commitments that would have involved individuals
and
here.
if we're going to do something out of the blue, we will let you know so
Yes.
that you can attend.
We're hopeful.
Yeah, just
All
keep
right?
an eye on it. If you see us pop in live, you know we're doing it. If not,
Just
we'll be
being-
back.
Just being
We'll be
us.
back. Just know we'll be back. Well, with that said, folks,
I want to hear you say that in your
No.
best Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
Not you, Scott. I want to hear Neil say that because he started it.
with great off-road parts comes great off-road responsibility. We
It
had a
needs to be a
great
t-shirt.
conversation. It should be a T-shirt. Would you buy it? That's what I'm asking you,
Yeah.
folks. Would you buy
let
it?
us know.
Let us know.
Send that to Jeffrey.
That's
Throw off to the ball. There you go.
You know what? That's right, delegation. And those of you who are viewing online on the old
Hopefully
camera
Chip's
here,
still here.
hopefully Chip is still with us. I have my awesome Jeep on stickers that he and Aaron produced for us. This one is actually leopard print and red and black plaid, which is phenomenal.
And that,
for
that
those
is
of you who
for Chuck
can't
Norris.
see. And this is for Chuck Norris. We have a great bag of graphics that they put because, quite frankly, we say this phrase at the end of every podcast, and yet we don't
that
have
one,
it on
that
the
one was
shirt.
perfect for your wife's Jeep.
Look at that red flannel. There's so many in here that are so good.
There was the pink leopard print one though.
We
with the
have these
perfect for-
graphics.
There it is.
And we're going to give some of these away because that seems only fitting
Yes.
because
Share
Chip
the
and
love.
Aaron were so gracious to us. So we're going to figure out a good way to give away these Jeep On stickers because they are just so cool and fun and funky. There's pink and blue leopard print and standard old tan and plaid. They're so cool.
And they did such a good job layering it. It's actual
Yes.
multiple layers of vinyl to make the designs.
So without further ado, folks, Jeep On.
Keep on.
Jeep on.